That brings me to the point of coexistence, actually. Uh, like you rightly said, that for a specific audience, and you're right, our decision makers are much older people than people who are actually going to be using Sherlock's and likes of Sherlock. So, what are some of our perspectives, and probably Deep or Cindy, any of you could go on coexistence of what are the scenarios where AI and AI coaches would do wonderfully well, and where we'll still have to go for human coaches because there is a world of coexistence, and that's what the emerging pattern is. So we can start with Deep and then go to Cindy.
Thanks. So how I look at this is when you talk of coexistence, um, do they even need to coexist or they can be independent of each other? That's a question to ask. The reason I'm saying that is, for example, coaching, when it started, human coaching, it was very generalistic. It's becoming more and more specialized. You have health coaches, you have
Yeah.
decision making coaches,
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
leadership coaches. Earlier, it was like one size fits all. You have a coach who will be more of a, it's like a general practitioner in medicine and a specialist, right? And then a super specialist, right? So for coaching using Gen AI, it's so independent of human coaching. I'll tell you why. Because when we look at Gen Zers and early career, first is what are they seeking? We want to be setting the expectations right. What are these people seeking? Anybody who's on a path of development, whether it's a senior leader or what have you normally need a trigger. It starts with a trigger. Humans are very self generative, they're intelligent species. You don't have to handhold anybody for all their life, right? It's a bit of handholding. They gain momentum, typically as a human coach, and then they get into a flow state, the coachees.
Yeah.
And then a coach would leave your hand. Now, with AI, Gen AI, and especially Sherlock, it's really a trigger first, a trigger to change patterns of thinking, current patterns of thinking, a trigger to ask questions which you've not asked, or even your managers perhaps haven't asked you those questions, or your parents or your peers. These are very important quality questions. And when you ask those questions, there is a shift that happens. That shift leads to a wider shift. I think in neuroscience, I don't know, Woody, you might know the term, or Cindy, there's something called, if I'm correct, it's a cataleptic process wherein a human brain needs to just see that little change, and then the subconscious, once it recognizes that, takes you on a path. It's like an airplane. When a plane, when it's descending, it's not like vertical, it doesn't land vertically. It starts to descend and descend. It's that small change it makes, and then it follows a path. So the brain follows that. Each time you are driven to go back to your original self, there is something that knocks you back because you're now on a path of change. So it's it's like that. So I'll stop here. For me, they are independent. I don't see the need to coexist. Gen AI is solving a very different problem, and it's doing something very different besides the scale. And by the way, it's pretty consistent. It's very consistent, more consistent than a human coach. And coming to emotional piece, which you said, Woody did an experiment. I'm not surprised because when we looked at the voice, and we are creating the voice module now, the modulation was so awesome. I've seen many human coaches who like baritone, they just one tone, they don't modulate. And that's okay, that's personality types, thinking types, and all human coaches are not so self aware about what are they triggering in their client. Many human coaches, by the way, don't know how are they a trigger to their clients. They also are triggers, and they don't know
Yeah.
how, what are they triggering. Are they triggering thought? Are they triggering easiness? Are they triggering anxiety? I don't know. So I believe Gen AI coaching will be more powerful than many coaches, will be less powerful than many expert master coaches. That's the way I look
Yeah.
at it. I wouldn't generalize, but yet
Sure.
it's my
So,
thinking.
Cindy, if I may just, I would want your answer specifically around. I think Deep kind of feels that there is a much broader usage of AI coaching for young and upcoming leaders, Gen Z, young millennials, and beyond that as well. What are those cases where really human coaches can't just go away? We just can never be able to rely on AI either today or tomorrow. I don't know. Hypothetically as well. In the future world might be very, very different. But yeah, as it stands today.
As it stands today, many human coaches engage with clients in a series of conversations, and there's an agenda that the client brings forward that is achieved over the series.
Yeah.
What might be useful, though, in the course of work is a quick chat with that coach. And human coaches aren't always available at 2 o'clock in the morning or for 5 minutes at 3:30 in the afternoon when they might be otherwise engaged. Sherlock is there and actually remembers the last chat, which is different. I've had some people say, oh, you could just, get coached by Chat GPT. Chat GPT clears the slate every time and it's a new conversation. Sherlock remembers your preferences.
Yeah.
It remembers prior conversations. It understands what your learning style is and how you'd like to actually have a conversation. Are you looking for a coach who's really supporting your expansive thinking, or are you looking more for a mentor who's kind of giving you some nudges in the right direction? So I think that, kind of in the realm of increasing productivity, which is one of the things that we are able to measure with Sherlock, it gets those folks, as Catherine mentioned, unstuck faster.
Yeah.
It helps them to feel differently engaged because they are in conversation with their peers more quickly about things that matter to the organization. And it actually helps them to feel, better, right? That's another measurement of Sherlock is well-being, where they aren't kind of mired in the problem, but really focused on, kind of solution and moving things forward. So I do think that there's always a benefit to that human interaction, especially in our screen world, right? We love that human interaction, though the utility and knowing that, kind of Sherlock is there whenever you need Sherlock, it's got your back, and you can hop in and hop out, take notes, recall. I think there's some great utility there. And again, just to compare it to humans, again, we're fallible. We remember or misremember sometimes. We might need to refresh the memory before going back into making a comment to a client. And to Deep's earlier point, sometimes we might say something that can be triggering,
Yeah.
and the AI is thoughtfully, I'll say, even though it's AI, asking each time it
Yeah.
shares something, how does this land with you? What about this idea connects with you, and really prompts the person who's engaging to take that next step and really kind of guide the conversation. Whereas sometimes human coaches can be a little bit more driving.
Yeah.
In this case, it really is the person who's engaging with Sherlock who's in the driver's seat, and as a result, has an evolved awareness of themselves, an evolved awareness of others around them, and an ability, I think, as Woody shared earlier, to respond to the stimuli of their environment as opposed to reacting, which
Yeah.
sometimes doesn't necessarily get us to the best place.